Hello, welcome back to Philosophy Online Tutorials. We are discussing research methodology, and in the previous video, audiovisual rather, we discussed uh, the concept of research and the types of research. Okay, now we are taking a look at philosophical and historical research. Now, when we talk about philosophical research, philosophy on its own has to do with a critical evaluation of the ideas that we live by. So, once we say something is a philosophical research, we are talking about an endeavor to understand a particular phenomenon, to build knowledge, to evaluate a body of knowledge, to critically look into a body of knowledge in order to bring out a new position, to erase a dogmatic belief on a particular field of knowledge or a theory. Okay, so now if philosophers carry out research on the ability of the human mind to predict the actions of others, you can say that that is the research work in the field of psychology. Okay, but it is a philosophical inquiry into the field of psychology to build more knowledge, to erase the dogmatic belief. So we go out to make research. Okay, why how possible it is for the human mind to predict outcomes. Okay, what is the limitation of the human mind? What is the ability or the strength of the human mind to actually carry out this function? So when we do all this, we see that we are making research, we are collecting data from various sources in order to analyze that belief in psychology that the human mind can predict the actions of others and so on. Okay, so now you, as a researcher in philosophical research, you are aiming to analyze the meaning and nature of different concepts and the relevance of these different concepts and their practices. Okay, now the features of the philosophical research can be summarized with the following points. The first point is that it has to do with the study of contributions made by philosophers or group of philosophers. So when you are looking into the works of philosophers, like the works of Aristotle on value, you are taking a look at Aristotle's understanding of value. Do you get it? And trying to build on it or trying to correct a nation on it, you are it's just like synthesis and antithesis. Do you get it? So now you compare that of Aristotle, you look at that of David Hume, Thomas Hobbes and so on. You are gathering the data to build a new form of knowledge. Okay, now it also has to do with looking into the philosophical ideas of particular school of thought. Okay, you know, we have different school of thought like idealism, like materialism and so on. So when you take a systematic endeavor to work on this body of knowledge, you are also doing a philosophical research. Okay, so when you also make a research on the curriculum of education in a country, okay, and what relevance does this curriculum has to students learning? Okay, you are carrying out a philosophical research. Okay, what relevance does instructional materials or the instructional method has on the impact of learning? How desirable is this uh, curriculum or instructional materials to students? You are carrying out a philosophical research. Okay, so that is on philosophical research. Now, what are the steps in carrying out a philosophical research? The first thing you have to do is to identify an appropriate topic. Okay, so what is the topic you want to look into? Okay, is it a critical study of the educational implications of existentialism? Is it a philosophical study of equality and gender? Do you get it? So when you do all this, you are actually picking out a topic to look into as regards philosophical research. And then the next thing you do is to do what? To collect data. Okay, from different sources. You can go to the library, you can go online, so you can get books. Do you get it? That is collecting data to build your work and also analyze those data to build a new form of knowledge. Okay, the next thing is to classify and interpret those data. So when you gather books and everything, you classify them. What? Because when Aristotle on that work on value is different from David Hume work on value, okay, and different from Rene Descartes on the human mind, okay. So you have to classify all these data. After you classify them, you now interpret them. It's after you interpret them that you now give your own position, that is your conclusion, your recommendation on it. And then lastly, you report the study. That is, you have been able to build a new body of knowledge from the data you've gotten, alongside the data you've gotten rather, and then you present or you report your findings. Okay, so that is on the steps for philosophical research. The next one we have is historical research, and from the word history, you know, we dig into the past events in order for us to do what, to understand the future. Okay, so when you carry out a research on the attitude of Africans in the pre-colonial era, that is an historical research. Okay, so you are attempting to make findings on the attitude of Africans in the pre-colonial era. It is not something that is present. So you are digging things into the past. Okay, so that is an example of historical research. Okay, so when we carry out historical research, we are attempting to understand the past in order to know why things are done in the present way, this way. Okay, so when we attempt to understand the attitude of Africans in the past, it shows that the attitude of Africans in the past is different in the present day, and maybe we want to try and bring back that attitude of the past to benefit us in the present day. Okay, so that is historical research in brevity. Okay, now the main features of historical research is that it helps us develop knowledge about past events in relation with a particular time and sociopolitical economic context. Okay, so when we talk like like I gave for example the attitude of Africans in the pre-colonial era, that is an era, we have talked about a time, a sociopolitical era, that is before the advent of the European, where we have the urbans and so on, an economic era of communalism. Do you get it? Everything has a context. Okay, now also we are digging into the significant data of the past. Okay, because we are not living in the past anymore, so we cannot say everything about what happened in the pre-colonial era. So we only pick out the significant data in the pre-colonial era. Okay, so now to get data for historical research, we have two sources, the primary and the secondary source. The primary source are those first-hand information from the past. For example, the book of or the proverbs or of Africans in the past. Those are, they are not just written by people now. They have been sayings from time immemorial. Okay, or if we are looking at the history of the civil war and how it reshaped politics in Africa. Okay, so we look at the works of people who experienced the civil war. So that is, we are getting first hand information, that is the information of first witnesses of these periods. Okay, that is primary sources of data. Okay, now the primary source could include the books of people at that time, artifacts, drawings, things we can find in the museum and so on. The secondary sources are what were written by others. Okay, like for example, Aristotle talked about value, right? He had his own book on value, but there are other philosophers that has written on Aristotle's idea of value. Those other philosophers work on Aristotle's idea of value are secondary sources. They are different from Aristotle's initial work on value, which is the like primary source. Do you get it? Okay, now the steps in historical research is for us to first of all identify a problem. What is this particular area we are looking under in history? Okay, now we have to specify a population too for our data. Okay, so if we are looking at the civil war, we have to know where are we focusing on. Is it the southwest, is it the eastern part of the country? We have to have a demography. Okay, when we have this demography, that is where we will now start collecting data based on the demography of the people we want to carry out our work, research work on. Okay, now we now organize our data. After organizing, we interpret what our findings and so on. Okay, and then we give a report. So that is on historical research. So I think with this we have a good understanding of philosophical research and historical research. Thank you.